session, or if they exceed a certain amount of IO, I want to stop that. So something very helpful. We'll see in 19C that's something called quarantine to do that, but also with pluggable databases that has that, those consumer groups, runaway query for query time or the amount of IO. And they also even do it for CPU as well. And we'll see a little more in autonomous database in a little while. Some other security enhancements that are out there, encryption continues to get better. In 12.2, we got it for system sysaugs and undo. This is another way that Oracle has so many different security options to tweak your security perfectly for your type of system. Something else that's going to get expanded, and in 12C it came out, actually in 12.102 it came out, is in memory. With 20C, Oracle is going to let you have up to 16 gigs at no extra cost. So this is something you also need to prepare for a little bit. Rows are very fast because I have a buffer cache. Oracle invented something called the in-memory column store so that I could put in memory, compressed memory, a column store of an entire column. That's more for analytics. So, you know, maybe I do inserts or different OLTP operations. That's nice row by row, but sometimes people run bad queries, or they want to run queries where they sum up an entire column. So now those columns could be stored in their own in-memory column store, and if these were compressed, it would compress them very well with a bitmap index, or actually uses B-tree indexes, but it would compress them very well. This can be done at the table space, partition, subpartition level. Here's an example, create table, just add in memory. Nothing else has to be done. Alter table in memory. Now keep in mind that it does not populate until I did a full table scan or I run the procedure to populate it. When I run those queries, I could actually, here I'm looking at the explain plan, I could see, yes, it did use the in-memory column store. So check it after you do it. And then I could set different compression levels. I can create the table. Maybe I could set the whole table at query high, then dep no, don't put in memory, and then capacity high ename. So I have different ways of doing this that are very helpful. And that in-memory area is in the SGA as well, just like the buffer caches. You can see them both here. I'll show you how to get that picture later. Create a join group is a new thing in 12.2 as well, where I could take, I'm joining two different tables, and the join group goes in that compression dictionary, and it's already compressed, and I don't need to decompress it to look at that join. So making joins much faster. Google's data center, I see a lot of memory, a lot of flash. Other things I need to do, I need to make things online. So Oracle in 12.2 allowed you to do all kinds of things online, move partition, subpartition. I could even update indexes so that they remain usable during that move operation when I move things online. They also gave me something called Big Data SQL so that I could use the security of Oracle to go to other NoSQL databases or something like Hadoop or something like that. But they extended it in release 2 so that those external tables could also be partitioned. So now I could make that Hadoop very fast, or that Hive or whatever, that NoSQL database very fast by partitioning that database. And you could see that only gets better in 18 and 19. You know, why is that important? Because we're going to big data more often. We're going to IoT more often. We're doing things with machine learning more often. So are we do we have the 12C features, and do we understand them? Because we're going to need it in 19. Do we understand what invisible indexes will do? That the DML, if I build a lot of invisible indexes, could be costly. Do we understand how to use Approximate Query as I do data warehousing? Do we understand multi-tenant and how to use pluggable databases? Are we doing things online? Are we starting to consolidate other databases? Using all the different partitioning enhancements, do we understand how to use external table for that big data? These are important things for 19. Now 18. 18 is a version maybe I'm not going to stop on, but I need to know what it is because I might want to implement those features for 19. And as a 3-digit format, year, every quarter, a new update comes out, and then they also have revisions to those updates. If I looked at this diagram, and they didn't show me this when 18 came out, or I might have said, well, I don't want to go to 18, I need to go to 19. We could see that 19 is where Oracle wants you to jump from 12. And we show some of the features of 12 and 18, but one of the big features in 18 was non-volatile memory support. Non-volatile memory keeps its contents even when the power is lost. You have memory, but then you have not quite as fast, but persistent memory or non-volatile memory that keeps its contents even when turned off. And that's different from other types of storage. So let's say I'm doing IoT where I have a thermostat and I'm taking measurements every fraction of a second. It uses these background drainers to drain all those calculations, where I can do in 18C 21 million inserts per second. 19C, it's now up to 25 million inserts per second. So as I look to IoT, an in-memory buffer for IoT really helps me. Another thing they gave me is increasing what we did for pluggable databases. So why were pluggable databases in 12 important? Because they're going to do more things and give me more features in 18 and 19. Let's look at the first one, Snapshot Carousel. A way to build a clone from one of my pluggable databases and let it automatically do a carousel of 8 snapshots of that clone. So it has, and these are full clones, just to let you know, you don't have to materialize them. Full clones built, maybe they're for testing, maybe they're for backup, maybe they're to share with developers. And then I could build a snapshot copy from any of those full clones as well, if I'd like. Here's just some of the commands. I'm not going to go through them, but I'm using the default value is 8 clones, 8 days, obviously. And I could reset that to 7 if I wanted. If I find out, oh, I've run out of space all of a sudden, well, maybe I better delete all of those and make sure that I don't run out of space. Here's an example. I'm going to alter it to be every 24 hours. I could change that, or I could make it 120 minutes. I could also do it before and after some major thing to make sure that it worked out okay. I have a backup of that, a clone backup, and then I could drop that snapshot that was before. So as I consolidate things, lots of flexibilities with these pluggable databases now. And here's just an example of looking at, physically, where are they? I always want to know, what's Oracle calling these and where are they? Because I didn't have to give them a name either. Oh, sorry about that. One more note, though, this just explains the difference between building a full clone that I don't need anything else for, and a snapshot copy, which is a sparse pluggable database that needs to be materialized, and then how to do that. So a little more information if you have time to look over that. They also gave me a new feature called per PDB Switchover. So maybe I'm refreshing every 2 minutes, but then I decide I'm going to switch over. So we saw in 12, I can create this and refresh every so many minutes. That was a nice thing that it gave me. But now I can add one more comment. Notice the gray's going up right now, and say, oh, switch over. Go the other direction from now on. So how amazing is that, where I don't have to write the logic to do that? Makes it easy to move things around or change where things, are being used. Some other nice things for data warehousing and big data. One of them is in-memory tables. So we talked about Hadoop and how I can now partition it. Now I can put it in memory so that it can be faster, up to 100 times faster. Well, if I partition it right, it might be 100,000 times faster than Hadoop is. And guess what it is? Much more secure. That's the most important thing. Something about external tables in memory, though, you cannot do it at a column level. The whole table has to go in. We saw earlier how we can exclude columns. of the other kind. And here's just an example of it. I do an external table, just looking at some flat file of data, some Excel CSV file. Now I just say add in memory to that, and now it's in memory. Very, very easy to do. And if I want to look to see what's in memory or not, this is a nice command to have. You can also do inline external tables. So instead of creating an external table and then saying, oh, let's insert that into the database and then drop the external table, I can now just insert inside using an external table instead of building it first. Something kind of interesting is 12.2 allowed me to split a partition online, but I couldn't merge a partition online till 18C. So in case you noticed that, they do have it in 18. And here's just a couple more examples of merging partitions. In 18C, they also added some approximate advantages. Here's top-end approximate aggregation where I can now, let's say, select the approximate count, fetch the first 5 rows. Maybe I'm trying to find the top 5 blogs with approximate hits. Top 50 customers with approximate spending. Do an approximate rank with approximate sum with a having approximate rank all together. And then I just put another example here just so you'd have it. You know, sometimes I read the Oracle docs and I go, wow, this sounds great. Wish I had an example. So I always try to give you an example as well. Here's an example of why I want to use approximate. 1 gig attempt to 0. 1 gig of sort to 50 meg. So here's an example. Here's my temp without approximate, no temp with approximate. Around a little over a gig or 1.1 gig of memory. Oh, only about 50 meg on the sort side of memory. So you can just see the memory reduction, the temp reduction, and that's why it's so much faster. What's the key to making machine learning fast? Don't do the query. How do you not do the query that's going to take years and years of time with machine learning? And the answer is use partitioning so it doesn't look at those other pieces. Use approximate so it gets roughly correct, given that it's okay to have an approximate within 97% with 95% accuracy. The other thing is 18C Express Edition came out. So we didn't have a 12C version of the free version. So 18C, they gave you 12 gig. But why is this nice? And I tweeted this the minute it came out. It actually came out during an ACE director meeting. But I could try out multi-tenant. I could try out index compression, in memory. I could try out partitioning. I could try out things like machine learning. So 18C features. Am I using Snapshot Carousel, PDB Switchover, in memory, approximate? Have I put those things in before I go to 19 and leverage them? And have I leveraged the pieces that were there in 12 in addition to that so that I'm ready for 19? The last one that came out with 18, but it really matured in 19 is Autonomous Data Warehouse in Transaction Processing. So as I look to 19, to me, the elephant in the room is the cloud. Do I still have a job? You know, I saw Pepper and I said, hey, can you tune my database? And she's like, I don't know what you're saying. And I'm like, good, keep it that way. And don't read my book either. But the job's changing where Autonomous Database is really helping you, offloading some of the work you have. And you're moving maybe, as I can go out to Oracle and look at Hadoop or look at NoSQL and things like that, and I could put it in memory and I could use external tables. What am I doing? I'm really becoming more of a data administrator. I'm the DA now instead of the DBA. But data is the new oil, and how do I get a bigger piece of this and start to give the business what it really needs in all these different data sources like big data or IoT? And the answer is become the DA. To some degree, I have to get to the cloud as well. I think there's just a few cloud vendors, and, I could see that somebody might buy things like Salesforce or SAP, some of the software as a service companies. But I also see some of these big cloud vendors making a lot of acquisitions of data science companies, just like Oracle. But Oracle exceeding AWS regions now in the cloud. So Oracle has already built a good database that would take others maybe decades to get the levels of security and other detail that they have in there. But in addition, they're starting to build the back end a whole lot better. More regions than AWS, and working within a hybrid cloud where, you know, Azure and Oracle are interconnected to make it even faster. They started with this by introducing the first version of 12c release 2 on the cloud, you know, just a few years back. And when I look at it, it was a pluggable database on Exadata. So one of the big advantages you got for a not very big price was a lot of advantages that Exadata gives you. So what did Oracle do with 32-bit and 64-bit? You know, they got it out very early. Then they bought a hardware company and they're starting to make the hardware so much better. And if you use Exadata now, you understand some of the incredible advantages that are there, in addition to the stuff that you can get if you go to the cloud on an Exadata using Autonomous Database. If you buy an Autonomous Database or you buy time for that, it is automatically on an Exadata and it's in the cloud. But you can also buy one in your own data center. You can buy one and let Oracle manage it in the cloud. You could buy it in the cloud. Oracle doesn't care as long as you buy it. They're happy. And if you have an X7, the X8 is even 60% faster, just to let you know. How hard is it? I'm not going to go through it, but if you've never done it, go to try it. Sign up. Try an autonomous data warehouse or transaction processing or analytics or big data or IoT, Kubernetes. How hard is it to do? Let's see. I click on this little hamburger icon, 3 lines, and go to Autonomous Database and say create one, and it starts to provision it. And 3 minutes later, I have a database. Here's an example of new. Now, if I want to do a 19C one, autonomous transaction processing. Let me try that one. That one only took me 2.5 minutes to provision. So how long to build a quick database? And if I have pluggable database, it's going to make it easier to move things around. Oh, let's just give the developers something easy in the cloud on Autonomous Database, move that pluggable database there, and so that they could do some machine learning quickly and then shut it down when they're done, maybe. How hard is it to scale up or scale down? Change the CPUs, the storage, stop it. Stopping it takes all of 2 minutes. Restart it took me another 2 minutes. Notice it went from green to yellow to, oh, it didn't go to red. It stayed yellow. Okay. It's also a service console where I can do development, do things like machine learning. Used to cost a lot of money. Now machine learning is 100% free when I use machine learning through Autonomous Database. You can see it here. Oracle Machine Learning is free. And you could also do it through, you know, go to the different packages in the database as well. And that is free now. Here's just an example. How hard is it to do? Well, if you learn these examples, you will become very good at machine learning very quickly. I'll give you one example, support vector machine. Find the anomaly within this data. What does it do? It builds a circle as tight as humanly possible, and the anomaly is everything outside. Or it puts a line between good and bad customers, not where the green one, not where the blue one is, but as far as possible. How does it do these things? And the answer is it does it through pages and pages and pages of math, which I've seen before. But with Oracle, I just have to call this algorithm. How hard is it to do? And I'm not teaching you how to do machine learning. I'm just going to show you how easy it is. Well, look, first of all, it's a lot of SQL. And I'm building a model that's calling a table that has a setting with the algorithm in it, support vector machine. So that then I can look at anomalous customers by saying, call that model, who's anomalous? One step further and say, find the top 15 anomalous where the rank is less than 15. Oh, tell me why, what are the attributes that made them anomalous. Oh, the first attribute was marital status. The second one was date of birth. Third attribute, credit limit, maybe education. But what's the hard part of this? SQL. Do you know SQL? You could do machine learning in Oracle. And these are all the different algorithms that are out there. We just saw the one class, support vector machine defined an anomaly. There's also classifying, support vector machine. That was the line separating good and bad customers, classify it into different customers and more. But as you build an autonomous database, DBA is very important. Is it tuned? Did I move too much data or did I move just what I needed? Am I sure I could recover this if I needed to? What are the policies for running it and so on? It's the DBA. But hopefully you become a data administrator that also has autonomous database doing some of this work for you. Now, when I looked at 20C, I go, okay, I didn't want to stop on 18. Well, I don't know that I want to stop on 20 either. So what's another reason why I want to be on 19 is how much more it's supported than 20. Now, if I have to go to 20, because it has some features I desperately want, maybe I'll go there. But 22 is going to be that next version that I want to get to. So if I'm on 12 now, I need to get to 19 because as the release family goes, the long-term release is 19. Then I'm probably not going to jump again until 22 unless I desperately need features of one of these. Oracle internally kind of looks at it this way. We had 12.102 and then release 2 was 12.201. And then 18C was just really 12.202. And 19C is 12.203 to them. It is similar to how they do things now. The only difference is now I can have those interim versions and use them as Oracle has features maybe that I need. You say, well, I've never used 19C. So, people ask me, do I have any experience? We can go to livesql.oracle.com, do a select star from $B version. Hey, you've done 19C. You can put on your resume now. Have you used 19C? Yes, I have. Okay, you can't do a lot of commands, but you can do some. If you've used it more recently, it has Oracle's new look and feel, and you can see it's on 19.5. That was just a couple of weeks ago. I can also access the Oracle Docs. This is a very good link. And of course, I tweeted it the minute Oracle came out with it. And if I want to do 20, you just say 20. And it does have a little bit different feel now. But what's new? Database Features app. What does it show me? If I search for in-memory, now it shows me all the new in-memory things and which version they came out in. Wow, isn't that nice to know? Click on one of them. It'll explain it more so I can learn about it. This is Hive and big data drivers. Long data type. Oh, support for extracting table with long, desupported, deprecated, I mean. What does that mean? Deprecate. Let's see. Express disapproval. Oracle disapproves you using this because they're going to take it away someday. Just like they took just how they took non-CDBs and made it multi-tenant in 20C. Other things I can do in this, get started. What's new? Interactive diagram. I showed you this picture with the in-memory and I could just click on something and it'll actually take me to the other page. The other nice thing in 19C, if I'm using autonomous database, is if I'm on 18C and I have autonomous database, Oracle is automatically going to look at everything, make sure it's going to be faster, test it before it upgrades me to 19C. So I'm not going to be on the hook with that like I was in the past. And one of those things is automatic indexing. Notice only on Exadata. I'm on autonomous database, it's on Exadata. But it's going to capture, identify, verify, decide, validate it, and then keep monitoring to make sure these indexing that it's put in is there. And what did we see in this? We saw it early within Oracle with multi-indexing where they use invisible indexes. But the first one is capture it. Capture all the plans, bind variables, execution statistics, identify who might be good. Are there candidates that are unusable. You're going to make it invisible. Should I drop indexes obsoleted by my new indexes that I build? Not to verify. Are we sure it's faster? We're going to decide, is it for all statements faster? Then maybe we'll take those from being invisible to visible. Worse for some statement, oh, better leave it invisible. Then validate. Is it continually doing that well and monitoring it and so on? And I could also set certain things from a space standpoint so it doesn't use too much space when it creates those indexes. But here's an example of how to do that. The default is, notice, off. So right now it's off. Then I say report only. It creates invisible indexes, but doesn't enable them yet. Create invisible index and make them visible if needed, if it thinks it should. I do that by saying implement. So that's how I turn it fully on. So I could just turn it partially on, fully on, or just keep it off. I can also turn it on and off for different schemas or for all schemas, on or off. And this just shows how to do that. Some nice commands to have. Creates B-tree indexes. And you can see some of the places I could look more at those. And then Richard Foote, a great thing, he said, hey, I created my first automatic index. Well, they created for me. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. Oracle creates an AI 600. So instead of an Aura 600, you start to get AI 600s to fix your issues. Isn't that nice? Kind of thought that was pretty good. And then Maria Colgan had a really nice way on measuring that this and showing you how over time it just makes things better and better and better. And I highly recommend Maria Colgan's blog on that from Oracle. Here's an example where I'm doing the report. I'm actually implementing it. When I implement it, I can also look at the report. And notice 53 index candidates, and it created 12. And they're all visible. So it already moved them to visible. Now, if I did report only, it would have been invisible. And then the space used. How much space did it use? Were any indexes dropped that I already had? And what is it? Oh, it's 3 times faster. Well, that's nice. I also could do hints, though. For this query, don't use those auto indexing. Or use those, or the bottom one is don't use it, but the top one, force an auto index. So I also have hints as well. The next thing in 19C is quarantine. So quarantine, keep in mind, is on the execution plan, not the SQL statement, but how it's being executed. So based on bind variables, might do a different execution plan. And they could terminate SQL statements, and those can then be quarantined, that execution plan quarantined forever. And this just shows, you know, the packages and procedures you use. You can see drop quarantine or alter quarantine. And then DBA SQL quarantine was where I can get some details on what that is. And then the other views, I can look at the execution plan of why it's quarantined to maybe look for structural reasons of why something is getting quarantined and how to fix it. And here's just an example of the error that people will get. It's quarantine. It's going to say you've exceeded the time. This call is aborted. And I can look at how many avoided executions have occurred. And then also, when's the last time somebody ran this quarantine statement? Very nice. Another one, if you use Active Data Guard, is Oracle now allows you to do DML on the active standby. So if you don't use Active Data Guard, which I highly recommend if you can afford it, it's more of a pricing issue and the benefit. But when I have Active Data Guard, I can always query this active standby. Well, now I can actually run a DML, update something, insert something. And what Oracle does is just redirect it back to the primary, apply it, and send it back to me so that I could see it. But a nice way, you know, instead of me manually having to do that. Nice thing in 19C. Oracle also, we saw in 12, we saw in 18, now we see more in 19. Oracle looking and giving you a way to look at other data in other clouds. And you could see this one SQL query of object stores allows me to not just look at Oracle, AWS, and Azure, but also have scalable joins that span these different data lakes that are out there. But the real feature that separates Oracle from other databases, in my opinion, is the security. And you can see 19C now, schema-only passwords, so that there's no password for certain accounts. But really, all of the security over the years is what separates Oracle. And if we look at other databases, sometimes they'll say, oh, we have security like Oracle, and they'll pick one or two of these. But then we see them in the news and we go, oh, the data lake, that's where they got that information from. Best feature of 19C, though, is 19C, since they're de-supporting non-CDB architecture in 20, they said, you know what? We're going to give you 3 user-created pluggable databases also in 19C. So why was pluggable databases important to learn? And why I showed that 12C feature, because now you're going to have 3 user-created, and it's going to be de-supported in 20. But I only need the multi-tenant option if I'm using 4 or more user-created pluggable databases. So am I using 19C features? First of all, autonomous database. I think that's the greatest feature that you have out there, where I can have a pluggable database on Exadata in the cloud, move things around easy by all these different things they've given me over the last 3 versions. But now I could have 3 pluggable databases. The next one, I could have 3 pluggable databases without buying multi-tenant. Automatic indexing. If I have Exadata or I'm an autonomous database. Json mapping. A lot of times people have XML, but JSON is a lot easier than XML. So Oracle has moved, they do both, of course, but they've done a lot more with JSON as well, and where you could put JSON in memory and things like that. SQL quarantine in memory for Hive and big data. We saw that earlier. And memory support also, though, for parallel query, rack, and active data guard. Real application testing has support for pluggable databases, as does ADDM. And then there's something called sharded rack. Now, I have a pluggable database out there, and what happened to it is Oracle said, hey, you're going to be automatic, and this was maybe 3 weeks ago, and said you're going to be automatically upgraded in September. So just like Larry said in the early part, we're going to use automatic indexing for you. It's going to check to make sure it's faster from 18 to 19, but it's going to automatically do it. I'm not even going to do the upgrade myself. Now it's telling me you should check all this and do all these different things, none of which I'll do because it's just for testing purposes. But the real reason of why you want to be on 19, though, is the support. It's the long-term version that Oracle has built for you. I do think it's good to know what's coming, though, in 20. You know, what's coming in 20 in these later versions? And the answer is auto machine learning, blockchain tables, faster, more in memory yet. So auto machine learning to kind of look at things and which algorithm would be the best one. So Oracle's automatically trying to help you so you can make better predictions. I also have something called Oracle Data Safe. So they're extending their security where it's easy to look at. Security, user, data discovery. And if you come to the session at the COUG/MOUG virtual meeting, that's on August 10th, I'll go into this in detail and how to actually look at the, you know, what they've given you in this area. Also data discovery. Have I protected my data well? Also have things that are, you know, as Oracle moves forward, they talk about a converged database where, you know, as you use machine learning and big data and things like that, it's becoming more converged, where whether I'm using spatial, whether I'm using text, whether it's OLTP data, whether it's data warehousing data, video, audio, whatever it is, Oracle has found a way to tune that over the past few decades. They also do in-memory vector joins now, which, if you know SIMD, single instruction, multiple data sets, is something that's used a lot in gaming. You know, when they have 40 million people playing the same game at the same time, SIMD processing becomes very important. also in 12C, in memory, where it'll go to the buffer cache for some things, or buffer cache for some things, and the in-memory column store for other things in the same query. And oh, by the way, I don't have to populate anymore. Remember we saw how to populate that in 12.102 just a few minutes ago? Well, now I don't have to do that. And it'll also be like a hot and cold end where it'll evict things. I'll go into that in more detail next time as well on August 10th. Oh, sorry. Also, if I go to the 20C docs here, I'm looking at 20, what's new? I can look at those same features where it has multiple versions. This one I'm looking at database in memory. And go to big data for in memory for external tables and learn more about that. Also, machine learning XBoost algorithm, a new algorithm. They've got a couple of new ones, I'll say, but you can go to also 20C preview mode where I pick something, a logical volume manager. Oh, I'm going to do 20C preview, pull up that database, and it's 20.2. So I could also take a look at that if I want. But are we using 20C features, automatic machine learning, in-memory vector joins, in-memory hybrid scans? Am I prepared for that when I go to 19? Then there's a free version of Oracle as well. I won't go into that, but just to let you know. But as we move forward, we're moving to this where things are converging. You know, are we becoming superheroes? We're going to implant digital. Certainly moving from using to wearing, but it's going to be implanted in the future. And if you look at the acceleration of jumping of directly addressable memory, put it in miles per hour, you can see we're quickly moving to robotics and machine learning, and it's going to go a lot faster. You know, there's robots out there now, autonomous database. So am I focused on trying to get the autonomous DBA to do some work for me? You know, am I leveraging the database in robots? Am I leveraging the database and AI and virtual reality or mixed reality or augmented reality like leading edge companies? Am I leveraging the database and GPS and robotics? These are the advantages of Oracle themselves. The fact that they have a converged database that handles all these different types of database data very efficiently and also secures them. Am I leveraging medicine? How about the autonomous database? Am I using chatbots? How about IoT? You know, Amazon's leveraging it. Oracle can leverage it even better if I'm using it. How about security? Am I leveraging the security features of Oracle? See more and more data breaches. How do we keep from going from the magical part of your company to where it's manic or toxic? Who's watching over that? Hopefully that tech leader who's the data administrator, who used to be the DBA. Am I leveraging all these things with myself as well? And the last one here up here is coffee, by the way. It's a sign for coffee. Oracle's not going to get caught. I mean, they're the BI leader. Machine learning is now free. They're not in the lead with the cloud. They got a little bit of a late start, but everything is becoming about the data, the database, and how Oracle has built this database over decades of time. So we talked about 12, why it's important for 19, what features of 18 are important in 19, and then those key new features in 19, what to look ahead of at 20. And I'll just stop here. If there's any quick questions, you could just pass them. I don't see any right now. You can see Oracle's been #1 since they pretty much became a database. Never gone down. Everybody seems to go up and down. And I did want to put up, though, on the screen how to get this talk. But we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. Are you giving back? This was pretty good. I saw Larry at a tie. It was at Rebels with a Cause where he was helping and he got an award for the Ellison Cancer Institute. And it just showed how, you know, he's giving back, but more importantly, the Ellison Cancer Institute working with the university uses machine learning to make breakthroughs in medicine. So he's doing those things. And then how do you get to success? It's not going to be easy. So how are you going to get to some of these new things that you have to implement? And the answer is there's only one way. You have to get out there and start getting the autonomous databases to do things for you. And I always say, you know, make sure you get an advantage of the aces when you see them speak. I always do. And then a few references that are out here. Many things end up at Rich Niemiec, just to let you know when they come out, when I see them. Oh, there's a little bit about me, done a couple things. But if you want to get a copy of the notes, or anything like that, I'm going to leave this up at the end. And at that, I'm going to pass it back to Alfredo. And thank you for coming. You know, how do you make a difference, though? Don't just upgrade to 19. Put those features you need in 12. Learn those features you need in 18. Learn those new features in 19. And then start to leverage the autonomous database and things like multi-tenant, so that you become very good at being a data administrator and start to leverage those outside data sources through a secure portal, which is Oracle using Big Data SQL. And I'll just say thank you and have a great day. And Alfredo, back to you.
Thank you, Rich. Thanks for that great presentation. There was just a couple of questions on the chat. One was, what features are only available on Exadata platforms?
Those two features are automatic indexing and quarantine are the main ones that I spoke of that are the ones that are there.
Okay. And then there was one more question.
Oh, you know what? I could just pull up the chat so you don't have to read it.
The other one was a little further up was, do you do an in-place upgrade from 12CR2 to 19C?
You know, you can do that, but there are some things you have to do. So just keep in mind that, you know, as you do things like that, that's where you might use somebody like us or somebody similar. It's very, very important, though, that you get, you know, you may do 1 or 2 upgrades. We're doing one every other week, maybe even every week. Sometimes we'll do 3 or 4 in a week, and we'll help upgrade people that have, you know, 40, 50 different databases. So that could be very, very helpful as well.
Okay. I think that was it on the questions from what I saw. I think that's it for today. Next week's presentation will be from Jorge Rimblas on Oracle ACE, and it will be on Apex and report templates, the definitive guide. So pretty much same bat time, same bat channel next week. We'll see you then.
All right. Thanks, Alfredo. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.